I don't know them.
People, you're ready.
Yes.
Seven stories.
What is it?
Only 7 stories.
There is so. Okay. Good morning, welcome. This is Fresh Press 91 and this is Move 98.1. My name is Lakumi and we are now in the segment called Freshly Pressed. It is the time where we analyze top stories, top news stories. For those of you who want to join the conversation, please go to our WhatsApp status. Also check our Instagram stories to see the headlines that we're treating this morning. Send your messages to 0809 0809 Please know that we're also streaming on YouTube, so you can join the conversation there as well. Send your messages in, and I will be taking your messages from YouTube as well as WhatsApp. I am joined in the studio by our great analysts, both of them very sound minds. I'm joined by Tunde Okufi. Hi, Big Cuffs.
Hi, Lakumi. Morning.
Good morning. And of course, Devo is in the studio.
Good morning, Lagos.
Good morning, gentlemen. Let's.
Compliments. Cool compliments.
Yeah, because yes, I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah.
24/7 hours count.
All right. Again, we're streaming on YouTube. Do join us there. Send your messages in. We'll be glad to hear from you. Let us know what you think about every single story here. Okay, let's get into the first story. Undeterred by bombings during his Maiduguri visit, Buhari says Nigeria is in final phase of tackling insurgency. That's Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari spoke in a reassuring tone Thursday while addressing troops in Maiduguri as after terrorists attacked the vicinity of the airport where the president was expected to land in Borno capital. This is for the vote. There were bombings just before the president landed. That's about an hour difference or thereabouts before he got into Borno. And well, he's also reassuring that things are getting better. What do you think the president means by we are in the final phase of campaign against insurgency?
All right, this is the part where you play the Mission Impossible music.
I love it.
Because this article goes with a very good headline. President, or let's say Buhari, undeterred. Unperturbed. Well, the way it was written was almost like a movie script because there was mortar fire from grenades and bombs.
You should check the article out
that
on
took
Premium
place
Times.
just an hour around the airport that the president was landing. Yet the president, you didn't hear that the president took a detour or he went elsewhere. The president landed, in full confidence. He was received by the governor of Borno State, that's Babagana Zulu, and army chiefs and some top political functionaries of the state, who then moved on to the Air Force base in Maiduguri, where they met with the troops of Operation Hadin Kai. All right, now, despite this initial fire, the security reports say that they're not sure whether, because they haven't gotten any identification as to who was behind it, and they're not sure whether it was a frontal attack on the president or it was just to embarrass him, or if it was even unconnected. However, the president still moved on to his plans, and in speaking to the troops, he generally gave them a position of assurance that they should stay steadfast, that Nigeria was at the final phase of tackling insurgency. All right, and one really wonders whether this was tied to the timing of the presidency ending, or is it that this was part of their security strategy. However, he did speak to the loss of a few of the top generals that we have lost recently, and some of the troops. He also encouraged the troops in terms of their welfare, and those who have been lost, their families, what will be done for them. He also spoke to the FG efforts in bringing about equipment to be able to support the fights during the insurgency, especially with the use of IEDs by the insurgents, various security gadgets and intelligence information to be able to support them. He also spoke about the efforts of the state government in trying to keep the northeast geopolitical zone functioning properly despite the hardships that they have faced.
Are you able to speak on the purpose in which the president was in Borno to inaugurate developmental projects? What do you think about that?
Yes, that's the tail end. Like I said, he was congratulating the state government on its efforts in keeping the northeast, especially Borno, functioning and being rebuilt, despite the fact that it had gone through a lot of attacks across the years. Now, the point is this, right? Because I don't want to just read it as a press release and then people feel, okay, well, it seems as if things have gone well. I really wonder, the question here is, can the president's stance, can his posture of assurance and confidence be extended to all parts of Nigeria? Why is he telling the troops that we're at the final phase? On what judgment basis, what criteria is he using? Because, there's been so much skirmish, continued skirmish. Even there was a visit of the governor of Kaduna State to the presidency last week, where he told them that the state government literally was at wit's end, that the FG needed to try alternative means of addressing the insecurity. And now that
And now he's saying that we're at the final
phase. So it brings up this irony. And given the fact that they've moved that the bandits should be referred to as terrorists, what is the new game plan? What is the all-out plan? Even, remember, there was a shutdown in telecommunications in Zamfara, Castina,
Yes.
and some parts of
I
Kaduna.
remember
We've not even confirmed how successful that was, because we're still hearing of of terrorist attacks in those locations. So the insecurity position that the president has stated, it will be tested, especially at this Yuletide year-end season. Because remember, the National Assembly did say they'll be going back to their home states, their constituencies for consultations. Let's really see whether that was done or that's going to be done, because we know many senators and House of Rep members who can't go back to their constituencies, and then citizens in terms of travel. So we will know very soon whether this position of the presidency is actually a figment of political spin or a reality that Nigerians will have to look for.
All right, we are really seeking knowledge on that, what the president means by we're in final phase of campaign against insurgency. All right, Tunde, let's get to the next story. The Lagos State government has waded into the Magodo land dispute, saying actions of Chief Adebayo Adeniga, one of the judgment creditors, misled the Nigerian police in attempting execution of the judgment, notwithstanding the pending appeal against the issuance of warrant of possession by the then Chief Judge of Lagos State on March 16, 2017. So is he trying to tell us that the police were just misinformed and they literally followed the landlords to go and do the entire thing that happened on Monday based on misinformation? Nobody verified anything, nobody asked questions, they just thought, you know what, let's go and follow them, they want to bulldoze a place, let's just go. Is this what he's trying to tell us?
Well, yes, but with a bit more nuance than that.
Okay, please
So,
explain.
and this all comes down to how far back we're allowed to go in this story, because it's a long story, and it reaches beyond just a story that I will be talking on in the Vanguard, which is the Lagos State's response, the side of the Lagos State government. But when you put both sides together, you see the full picture. And this is a situation and a case that's been on since 1984, right? That's a very long time waiting for a judgment, which is one of the issues that people have with our legal system. It's one of the issues people have with investing in the country, especially investing in the country, obviously, because litigation takes forever, and especially when it comes to land, because generally records a mess. The whole process is a mess. So, just a quick summary is these guys were in possession of land, or they had land, and the government had need for the land, and then therefore issued a notice to evict them, so to say, that the government near the land for an important project. And they could do that because of the Land Use Act, of course, and you find a few other developing countries, enact laws like that sort of allows the government lead development. Now the issue, however, is that one, the land was never used for the purpose for which it was collected, and the people who were present in the land they evicted are meant to be compensated, actually reallocated. Right now, this issue has dragged on, back and forth for the longest time. But in summary, dragged back and forth between the Lagos State government, which are the defendants, and the guys who took them to court. And it got all the way to the Supreme Court.
That's the Shangisha Landlords Association.
The Shangisha Landlords Association. And it got all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, I'm not a lawyer, but from lay interpretation, the Supreme Court clearly found in their favor. Now, what the Lagos State government is using is, should I say, I won't call it a technicality, but maybe some gaps in precisely what the judgment said, right? So it says the judgment, and I'll read verbatim. An order of the mandatory injunction is hereby made that the said defendant shall forthwith allocate 549 plots to the plaintiffs in the said Shangisha village scheme in the Shangisha village aforementioned. Now, their claim is that it is obvious that the judgment says reallocation, and it doesn't speak to anything that has to do with land possession of the land. Right, so that's the whole argument of the legal state. That yes, the High Court, the Supreme Court, the highest court in land, has found you a favor.
Yes.
And again, you remember I called that just back and forth. So for them, when the court finds you in favor, then there's still more paperwork for you to actually take possession, and that had to be signed by someone in the legal state, I think the Chief Justice. That took forever as well. They were in that phase for a year. They finally get that sign off before they can execute the legal, the office, the Chief Justice of the state withdraws it. So there's really a lot of back and forth, and it's really complicated and convoluted. But today, the conversation is that, okay, this is the loophole, that the judgment of the Supreme Court says reallocation. And I guess what the Lagos State government has chosen to look at is it is on us to decide
where,
how we're going to reallocate you, right? That it didn't say that, the judge clearly didn't say that you can go and take possession, in such and such.
Okay.
Such and such
Quite true.
Which, and to be honest, it makes sense, right?
Is the association is saying you are giving us a Bejuleki, giving us a Badagry.
That's the other issue. Now, reallocation it should be on par, something on the same level. The offerings will allocate them Badagry, allocate them Bejuleki. They don't find it, generally at least have come to consensus. There's some division amongst them. Some say they don't mind, others don't. I guess maybe those who don't mind can take it, but then the government still needs to make sure that they settle everyone.
Okay, so we're seeing an update on this story because we actually took the story yesterday, but this is an update based on Lagos State's response, saying we're still standing by it. We're going to allocate you plots, but definitely not that place. You're not supposed to repossess Makodo. I wonder where this is going to go, but we'll keep watching. All right, Devo, let's move to the next story. It's the NSAS update. The Abuja NSAS panel probing allegations of human rights violation perpetrated by the defunct Special Anti-Robbery Squad and other units of the Nigerian police on Thursday awarded 146 million naira to victims of gross rights violation. In this particular report, Devo, there's also this part where Premium Times said they had reported that the NHRC, which set up the federal government's panel of inquiry on police brutality in Abuja, said in March this year that 44 of the petitions submitted were about enforcement of judgments awarding damages against the police for rights violation. Now, the commission added that 20 of the petitions considered in just one day had a total of 575.8 million naira in judgment debt against the police. So, but then they're now awarding 146 million. Do you think that first of all, do you think this is a good move? And also, do you think that this particular cost is low compared to what should be given?
Well, the cost is what it is. It's the outcome of cases that were before the panel. And as you know, the NSAS panel was one of the redress actions instituted by the federal government in most of the locations within the country to address the agitations that came forward from the NSAS agitation. Now, remember, yes, there was Lagos, Port Harcourt, Benin, Ibadan. I think Abuja was also one of the locations that the panels were set up. Now, the executive secretary of the Human Rights Commission, Tony Odiku, was on ground to present the 146 million naira check, which was a group check for those who were going to receive. However, he mentioned that the monies were symbolic gestures to assuage the victims of the infringements. Now, to your question, the 575 million judgment that people were claiming, obviously it's clear that they weren't able to take care of everything. The amount that they're able to take care of here only covers 146 million. Now, these judgment compensations cover they were bordering on extrajudicial killings, unlawful arrest, detentions, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatments, torture, alleged enforced disappearance, confiscation of property, among others. Now, these are some of the issues that people, as you know, nationwide have been facing with the police, and instead of getting justice, what they've got was brutality. So we'll take it as a step forward, but let's say that the step is not enough. Now, however, despite the fact that they were able to deal with some compensation to the tune of 146 million, there's still 143 petitions left. And what the commission mentioned was that they have faced some grave challenges in the sense of funding, that they've not gotten sufficient adequate funding to be able to carry out their logistics, their operations. So the panel has been shut down until further notice, till more funding comes, and they won't be able to deal with the balance petitions until funding comes. So really, there's a lot pending. Remember, this is just Abuja. We've not heard from some of the other cities what came out of their own.
Where is the funding supposed to come from?
Well, at that time, the federal government requested that the state government set up these panels. In this case, this is the FCT, which is why the National Human Rights Commission comes in on behalf of the federal government to host it.
Okay. All right, let's move to the next story. Sunday, are you ready? The military and other security agencies, that's NIS warns of foreign terror attacks, FG items security. So the military and other security agencies, including the Nigerian Immigration Service, excuse me, have intensified security within Abuja following a warning from the presidency over a planned attack by some terrorists during the Christmas holiday. Today.
All right. My initial thought was, where was this coming from? Where was this coming from the NIS, the Immigration Service? Or are they the ones? Most people were informed, but were they the ones with loose lips? But it's a separate matter as to who should be, informing the nation. Now, how do I say it? So it's good, it's important, it's useful to know that we do take these things seriously. It is important to know, and it's comforting to know that we do have some type of intelligence, although it's ultimately there's nowhere near the level required. It's not proactive enough, and we have too many incidents that show that. At least we do have some intelligence on some level, and we do take action on these matters. The questions that I do have is the level of detail being released. To me, this would indicate or read that this already is an issue that has been solved. And I'll explain what I mean. Because even down to the type, the color and registration number of the vehicle that the supposed terrorists are in is known, right? Their accomplices are known. To me, that's a solved story. That's a solved matter. That's not something that is, impending and that is sort of dealt with. And maybe that's why there's this level of detailing, because ordinarily what happens in a lot of other countries, especially if it's a developing story, all that is intelligence. And intelligence is not something that the public would broadcast. So what they do is that they have sort of a grading and a ranking system within the country when they say, athlete levels are probably at but they have different levels, maybe ranked by number or column, so that the general populace knows that it's a heightened level of awareness and security. They're also educated around, if you see unattended, if you see anything suspicious, here are the numbers, and here are the people to notify. So there's a way that you notify the public without spewing out this level of detail and compromising whatever efforts you in place to apprehend, which is why I say with NIS having loose lips, so this is just generally how they put it out. But to me, it looks like it's been resolved. Down to the registration number, it's clear. Everything is it's laid out. But yeah, it's important. It's good. There are concerns clearly when you think about these things, how difficult it is for those come to the country. The NIS and our infrastructure around that doesn't give a lot of comfort. In most places, we don't really have borders. The border is something drawn on your map, somewhere, someplace, but there are actually no physical borders. It's very easy for people to come into the country via multiple, land routes. So. For me, the level of detail indicated in this indicates that it's been solved. For those that haven't been solved, I hope that they are taking and continue to take the
Did they indicate
there's no indication
how to report in case there's any?
Exactly. So you see, that's the thing. So to me, the story just looks like a pat on the back.
Okay.
A case that they've solved, presenting it as though it's an ongoing threat, so we're applauding them. So applaud, since if that's the aim. But, they should stay awake and alert to anything else.
Thank you, Tim. Let's move to the next story. This is FJ restricting religious gatherings to 50% capacity. Boss Mustafa-led Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 declared that indoor religious gatherings should be limited to 50% with full compliance to public health measures. Of course, we already know that this affects the annual crossover services that holds across the country in several churches. Debo?
Well, we would have retitled this article Santa Claus unable to come to Nigeria because of vaccination status. Yeah. So the PTF, that's the Presidential Task Force, has given a new guideline as an update to the fourth wave, which is the Omicron alert. As you know, there have been increased cases of infection around the country, guided by increased travels because it's the year-end season, and also not just travels but events. Now, I'm wondering why they isolated religious gatherings, because actually it should be targeted at public gatherings, which affect not just religious bodies but as well as events, owners, concerts, marketplaces, because it's the same community transmission that takes place across board once people come in contact with each other. Now, so what they've said is that in lieu of this, during this season, one of the new guidelines is that religious centers, first of all, should only hold events with 50% capacity, one. And if their numbers are going to, that's for indoor events, gatherings, and if their number should exceed 50, it should be done in open spaces where breeze and air can carry any attempt by transmission to spread, to whisk it away. Now, they've also said that there's been reduced public health safety compliance, and this is actually where the real issue lies, because one, we know that vaccine mandate is dead on arrival, which is the fact that those who had attempted to enforce it, generally for you to get that done, you need to have some ubiquitous presence or accessibility and availability of the vaccine. And I know many people who have gotten the first dose that can't get the second dose. Some have even gone and been told it's not available. Yes, and the supply that we had in the country, about 1 million, were just destroyed, confiscated last week because they had expired. So literally, what's the percentage? I mean, we're talking about less than 15% of the population that have that has been vaccinated.
15.
Yes. Yes, you're right, actually. When I was saying 15%, I'm referring to 15% of what was even made available that people took opportunity with what was wasted. Now, thirdly, many people, I think, out of apathy, have generally just forgotten about the non-pharmaceutical measures in terms of washing hands with soap, the use of the sanitizer, the social distancing. Yes, we gathered from some levels of research that Omicron may have a milder effect. However, that is not to say that we shouldn't also take in our own measures to ensure that we protect ourselves. So what it's boiled down to is that despite the government's position or the state government's position, every citizen must institute their own level of self-protection, whether you are within the country or you are traveling out. Thirdly, I would also like to propose that I believe the federal government, through NAFDAC and some of the Ministry of Health and Science, should do some level of research to confirm why our status of recovery in Nigeria is very high. This is an aspect that we haven't looked at. Despite the global position in deaths and increased infection, we're not exactly seeing that within the country. Many people, as we all know, have experienced some form of cold, catarrh, or some form of malaria bouts in this season, and it has been adduced to Omicron. However, the recovery rates within the country has been extremely high. So where we perform, I think that should be given some level of scientific position, so that it's not just seen as we're lucky. No, nobody's lucky. If they need to check our blood cells and confirm that maybe our blood cells contain some high-powered DNA, that something could come out. And I mean this seriously, jokes apart. If we've done well as against the whole world, then somebody needs to check and confirm what is the real scientific case behind Nigeria's high level of recovery, despite the fact that Omicron also existed here as well.
Thank you. The messages. Yinka says, please, which year as DSS or whoever not warned about attacks during festive season? This one is just a norm. Just do your job and follow any attack. Some same people that did not predict my degree bombing. Okay, Alakeji says the guys who got judgment from the court can enforce it through the court, while the panel deals with the monetary outcome of its own hearing. Okay, thank you for that. Let's move quickly more, if we can, this is a really deep story, and I would have loved for you to really delve into it. Well, headline quickly: oil spills hit 14 million liters as Shell's 800 billion naira judgment upsets industry. This covers a lot of
Yeah,
things.
it covers a lot, and it's one of those that essentially runs through the spine of our nation, to be honest. Oil exploration in the Niger Delta, our single and largest source of income, all the struggles and issues during the military era, we can tell you. So and all of this around especially the environmental impact of oil exploration and spillage in the area. And so it's a very deep story. Shell and a bunch of other IOCs have received judgments against them. They're currently in the process of trying to see, appealing against those judgments and see where they sort of land. The details are deep, but things that I would like to, highlight. Were two things. The level of oil spillage in the Nigerian region is the highest in the world by all indications. And in let me not say in any other country, let me say in any country outside of Africa, it will be national daily. It's a crisis. Remember the BP oil spillage off of the coast in North America. We saw how that literally brought BP down, nearly went down. Right, one incident, and it's a fraction of what happens in Nigeria. I think they say there are 400,000 barrels of crude oil is estimated to be leaked every day. To me, those areas are unlivable, and you can see why the struggles and environmental activists, and some pay with their lives. Right. The other issue that needs to be pointed out is most of these IOCs are divesting their assets. They're selling off essentially and leaving. Right.
Yes.
They should clean up before they leave.
That's one thing that's like the core of this particular story. They should clean up before leaving. Messages. Olabode says, don't let them find out why our immune level against COVID is high, because they design a COVID series or design the one that's please Olabode, please. Diko says Omicron not like Diko. I don't think so. Do your research on Omicron, please. All right, thank you so much, Lagos, and the rest of the world for joining the conversation this morning. With this has been Freshly Pressed. It's been a good time talking to Devo and Big Coast. You can find Tunde online. He is at Big Coast. Devo is at Devo Okoring. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. You can join the conversation. You can actually continue the conversation online. You can reach out to them on social media. You can also reach out to us. It is at Smooth981. That's how to find us on social media. This has been Freshly Pressed, but we have more to come on the radio. Good music and great conversation. We're going to go straight into Lagos Talks at 8:10, where we're going to just discuss something light, something interesting, and something fun. Because today is Friday, and it is Feel Good Friday. Thank you again for joining in. Stick around.
So how long is it only one? Are you going to run throughout the holiday?
So what?
Holiday.
Friday should be back on Monday.
So,
Hey YouTube, I apologize for the sound. I tried to fix it, but I hope it wasn't so bad. I'm so sorry.
so can they hear?
What? It's kind of